A light mist hung over the still waters of the river. Nightbirds chirped from the darkness, and cicadas accompanied them with their buzzing. Twilight was the perfect time for fishing. Not many ventured out at this hour for fishing, which Simon took advantage of. In moments like these, one could truly relax and savor the natural atmosphere. And most importantly, have a good catch. Before lowering the boat, Simon surveyed the water's surface. Minnows played at the bottom, timidly approaching the shore. A gentle touch to the clear surface, and they scattered in different directions. The boat was now in motion, and Simon jumped in, heading deeper into the river. A light breeze blew at his back, causing hundreds of goosebumps to run down his spine. He shivered, bundling up in his warm jacket. Once he had distanced himself from the shore, Simon took hold of his fishing rod. He didn't have to wait long for the first catch. A fish took the bait within a couple of minutes. An old, reliable worm with a special twist always did the trick. He cast again, and this time, the wait was slightly longer. The fishing was going well. Half a bucket was already filled, with another one ready to go. Simon was caught up in the excitement, forgetting about time and more. Fishing had enthralled him to the point that he only thought about fish and the seemingly endless river. He didn't even notice when a strange-looking fish approached his boat. It was quite large, roundish in shape with angular sides, and its head resembled something human-like. As soon as Simon peered over the side to wash his hands, the strange fish swam away. He noticed it and stared into the water, but the fish was no longer visible. Must have been a hallucination, he thought, gripping the fishing rod once again. Just as he cast his line, unexpectedly, this fish leapt out of the water, latching onto Simon's hand. He screamed, grabbing the creature by the tail and pulling, but it wouldn't let go. Its teeth had sunk so deeply into his flesh that it was impossible to detach. He had to resort to using his fists. After a few blows, the fish let go of his hand, hit the side of the boat, and sank back into the water. Blood flowed profusely from his hand, streaming onto the water's surface, thus attracting even more of such creatures. Simon tightly held onto the wound. This wouldn't stop the bleeding, of course. He had to sacrifice the sleeve of his jacket to stop the bleeding from bothering him. Now, all he had to do was get out of there. He hadn't sailed a couple of meters when they attacked him again. This time, 3 of those fish bit into his flesh. All 3 monsters aimed for his forearms, forcing him to release the oars. His body convulsed, and the pain grew worse. Simon couldn't fend off these aquatic creatures. He started thrashing against the boat's sides. Eventually, they detached, taking chunks of flesh with them. Simon fell to the boat's bottom, screaming loudly, but no one heard him. More creatures approached. A whole flock, several dozen of these creatures, gathered around the catch. They leapt out of the water, flying over the boat. All Simon could do was defend himself, raising his bloodied hands. When one of these fish ended up on the boat, Simon quickly grabbed an oar, sat down, and crushed its head with several blows. Struggling to get up, he waved the oar, fending off the monsters, but there were more and more of them. From several dozen to 100, it was impossible to fend off such a horde. The oar broke in this battle. Soon, everything went silent as Simon grabbed the second oar. The aquatic monsters stopped terrorizing him. Simon stood ready for a minute until the tension in his body subsided. There was no time to lose. He had to swim away. It was quite challenging with just one oar, and swimming was impossible. His hands hurt terribly. The shore was still far away. Simon hoped that someone would hear him, but again, silence. No one heard his plea for help. Simon was completely desperate, so he grabbed his head and started crying. He would have to sit in the middle of the river until morning, hoping someone would find him. Unexpectedly, the water gurgled in front of the boat. Simon paid attention to this. With each passing moment, more bubbles appeared. A small wave formed in that spot, and it headed toward the boat, increasing in size. This wave turned out to be very unusual. Those creatures were approaching their prey as a whole wall, creating a water current. Simon covered himself with his hands, though he knew it was unlikely to help. The wave of those river monsters engulfed him, swallowing him along with the boat. 2 fishermen found the young man's body the next day, floating on the water's surface. They noticed his gnawed, bloody back, with his spine protruding. The fishermen abandoned their fishing rods and rushed to call for help. Meanwhile, several of those creatures swam closer to the shore,